Every year this week of the 9 days, I go through the same exact thing of rebellion, then feeling very frum, then rebelling again, and then like feeling very, very frum again, and then going back and forth between what I think I'm supposed to be feeling during these 9 days leading up to Tisha B'Av, to what I'm just not expecting myself to feel, but what is right now. What's right now? I always have this silent conversation with one of the 6 million during this week. For years. I always have this conversation with someone that's about to go into the gas chambers and letting them know, I just want to let you know, in about 10 years from now or 60, 70 years from now, you know, there's going to be thousands and thousands and millions of Jews that are building Eretz Yisrael. And we're still going to have Tisha B'Av. I have this conversation with them all the time, trying to guess or assume what they would say. And sometimes I feel like they're looking at me and saying, are you an idiot? Look, this is Tisha B'Av. There's a German with a gun. There's a German that with a gun to my head. I have 10 seconds to live. My children were killed in front of me yesterday, chas v'shalom, and you're telling me that you're going to be living in the most beautiful dream reality, but you're still going to have Tisha B'Av? You're still going to be going through mourning periods? What are you talking about? That's one side. That's one voice I hear sometimes. Then there's another voice, and this voice is like a very, very loud voice. Very loud voice. It got loud yesterday again. I was waiting when this guy's going to pop up, because this guy has a name. I'm sure you've heard me, whoever we had the privilege of learning together with for many years. This voice is loud, and it's the name. His name is Rabbi Yoshua Wolf. He was a Bobover Chassid. And his voice is very, very loud. He made it through the hell of 5 years in concentration camps. And he said that he went through every hell you could imagine during those years, but the worst day of his life was the day that he was liberated from the camps. So his grandchildren asked him, how could that be the worst day of your life? He said, don't you understand? The only reason I kept myself going every single day in the camps was because I knew that the only person that can liberate me from this hell is Eliyahu Navi coming to tell me Mashiach came to take you out and bring you to Yerushalayim. And then on that day, when a Russian soldier comes and liberates me, I looked up to Shamayim and I said, this is what I waited for? Ribono Shel Olam, I'm not stopping until you send the real liberator. This is cute and this is sweet, but I'm not stopping until you. He said, had I known it would have been a Russian soldier coming to liberate me and not Mashiach, I wouldn't have made it. There's no way I would have made it. But that voice is so loud saying to me, don't stop yet. This is not the end. This is not the end. So yeah, there's a 9 days there, there's Tisha B'Av. You got to keep on going with whatever this period of time is. And I'm telling you, Chevra, every year, both voices are just as loud. It's just different days in the 9 days that they both get really loud. It's just that years like this, when Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, it's like by Tisha B'Av itself, the whole thing is like Purim. It's like the whole thing explodes. I don't hear anything, right? Does anyone else feel that? Like last year, it happened last year also. I think it also happened 3 years ago. Tisha B'Av came out on Shabbos. And this year again. Like someone called me today for halachas. He was like, so I just want to understand, no mikvah on Tisha B'Av this year? I said, well, actually no. There's no mikvah on Yud B'Av, but there's a mikvah on Tisha B'Av because the 9th day is Shabbos. So yes, when that happens, it's a very real thing. It's a big thing, you know. It's not stam. Oh, it happens to fall out. And then Tisha B'Av becomes this like nidche, and because we're already at the end of this confusion, so it becomes every year more and more nidche because we have no idea what to do with this day. That's the tachlis. We have no idea what to do with this day. We have no idea what to do with this day when this day only becomes about the Beit HaMikdash. I want to take us away for a second, as crazy as this sounds, and forget about the Beit HaMikdash for a second, and re-meet Tisha B'Av in a completely different way, I think. Completely different way. People have a hard time connecting to Tisha B'Av because they're like, do I really miss something that I have no shaykhs to, that I don't even know how I would relate to? So let's just understand how the Gemara explains for us what happened. I came in here and I love looking at your walls. Every time I'm in the house, it always looks more and more beautiful. There's always more svarim, that's first of all. And just look, and the drapes are gewalt also, but everything here just looks, obviously these beautiful pieces, there's so much beauty. So the Gemara says that, 10 cubits of beauty came down to the world. Whatever that means, just think of like massive quantities of beauty in the whole world. And the Gemara says Yerushalayim got 9 of them. Like 90% of whatever is considered beautiful in the whole world was in Yerushalayim. Evia Tarban, I posted a beautiful video of him yesterday in the Himalayas doing his thing. He goes there a lot during the 3 weeks. He goes there quite often during the 3 weeks. Checks out. Bini, my wife and I went to go daven with him the night before the 3 weeks started. And it was so beautiful. Then he checks out and he goes to the Himalayas and it was like so gorgeous, the scenery and everything. And there's a lot of places you can go to today that are very beautiful and pretty, and what you would feel like it's a beautiful place. We don't even understand the concept of a beautiful Yerushalayim, what that beauty meant, even the concept of beauty. We try so hard to connect to beauty. Imagine the majority, 90% of beauty that was in the world was in Yerushalayim. And it's not just scenery, beautiful people. If the Midrash says people would walk around, they were the most beautiful people in the world. Just whatever you think beauty is, was there. Imagine the most beautiful piece of music, right? And the imagery and what that does to you. That's what it was like, being in Yerushalayim. With the Churban of Yerushalayim, beauty was lost. And I think that even a more painful thing, this I mamish want to say strong, that should give us a lot of strength. People stopped thinking that they are beautiful. And that's murder. Because it shouldn't be like that. And most people that suffer in the world today from whatever they're suffering, it's because they do not sense that they are beautiful people. They don't see beauty when they look in the mirror. They don't feel beauty when they think about themselves. When they imagine what someone thinks about them, the last thing they think about is that someone thinks of me as beautiful. That's a big chunk of what was taken out from the world with the Churban of Yerushalayim. So yeah, it was a Beis HaMikdash for sure, the most beautiful building in the world. But people walking around in a holy, non-haughty way, in a humble way, living with a very humble identity of beauty. How do you meet someone that's a very redemptive person? Rav Shalom. What was Rav Shalom? He made you feel beautiful. The way he looked at you, certain words he would say to you, he made you feel beautiful. Rav Shalom, he spent his whole life walking around the world making people feel beautiful, bringing back some of the Tisha Kabin Shel Yofi that got lost with Churban Beis HaMikdash. And every place he went to was a little bit of a rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. So that concept of beauty in itself is lost. Okay, so put that on the side for 1 second, and we're going to go somewhere else, but it's directly related, and we'll get back to that at the end. And open your hearts as much as you can, because it's not even fully clear to me how I want to say what I'm feeling, but if our hearts are all open together, anything can happen. You know what happens to someone that doesn't feel like they're beautiful? They add one of the attributes to Hashem's attributes. The 13 attributes of mercy, there's a 14th attribute that gets added on when someone doesn't feel like they're beautiful. And they know that Hashem made them. So they have what the Ishbitzer calls a tar omet, which means a taina, like a claim on God. A real claim on God. Okay, so what's the attribute they would add? So we know Hashem Kel, Rachum Bechanun, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet. They say, yeah, that's all true. Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Noseh Avon V'Fesha V'Chata'ah V'Nakeh. Then they add one more, V'Nakman. That's how people live their lives. God is a revengeful God, not against enemies that there should be revenge on. God has some kind of revenge with me. He created me, and the way He created me, He's sticking it to me all the time. He's telling me, as much as I'm going to give you treats here and there, you're going to suffer forever. You're never going to find a way out of this. With all the tricks in your bags, with all the different mini geulas, the many redemptions you find, there are people that when they don't identify themselves with beauty, seriously identify God as a nakman, with all the gifts they have in life. You have it for me. Now where does that come from? You think that's made up? I don't think that's made up. I actually think that there's a very, very strong base in the Torah to think like that. And what is that? It's the original Tisha B'Av. What's the original Tisha B'Av? It's not Churban Bayit Sheni, and it's not Churban Bayit Rishon. We all know the original Tisha B'Av. Parshat Shlach. Parshat Shlach is the original Tisha B'Av. Let's go into the heart of Parshat Shlach. The heart of Parshat Shlach with the Meraglim is that we know that fateful night when they came back, or the daytime when they came back, and they reported what they reported, and what ends up happening, I forget the exact lashon in the Torah. I think it says, Vayivku b'layla ahu. Everyone starts crying hysterically. Why are they crying hysterically? Because they believed all the reports that the Meraglim told them. They start crying and crying and crying. So let me ask you a question about crying. Did you ever cry only to realize afterwards that there was no reason to cry over something? That ever happened to anybody in this room? That you actually had a gesund cry because you thought that the reasons you were crying for were really legitimate reasons, only to find out afterwards that there was a miscommunication or something, and had you known the real emet, you wouldn't have cried. Did I ever? You don't have to answer me right now. What happens to a person when they cry? Crying is such a deep expression of the neshama. And we always want to make sure that we're real, we're authentic. But when it comes to expressing something from the soul that's not necessarily real or authentic, it's mamish called like bechi levatala. Tears in vain. And we have other concepts, levatala in Yiddishkeit. Rebbe spoke about this in the Lava Malka. Do you remember? He was talking about words levatala. Like sometimes when we realize we have all this arsenal of words that we use, and when we say words that are also for nothing, what kind of person it creates, and obviously the other well-known inyanim of levatala. But tears levatala, when you cry for no reason, you have to, you're shaken to your core. Because what happens is your soul comes out, it expresses itself, but what ends up, but it's not real. That night that we cried, levatala. So what does Rabbi Yochanan and the Gemara and Tainis tell us? It's an amazing thing. And this is how we're going to get back to people thinking that God is a nakman, is a vengeful. Is that the right word? You'd say a vengeful? Nakman? Huh? A vengeful, right? Yeah. So what does Rabbi Yochanan say? And this is what I wanted to talk about for a few minutes tonight. He says, you cried b'chia l'chinam. You guys cried for nothing. You actually believed this report. You cried your eyes out over what? Over something that wasn't even the truth of truths. Anaf ani, what am I going to do? I'm going to make you b'chia ledorot. That's what the Gemara says. I'm going to make you cry forever. Or at least, I don't want to say forever. Ledorot doesn't mean forever. It just means for many, many years, you're going to end up crying. Geval, you're going to end up crying. Person hears that Gemara says, what are we talking about? Hashem loves you. What do you mean? A Breslover just gave me a book. He said Hashem loves me, but it doesn't work with me on Tisha B'Av. What am I going to do with this? The guy was jumping on the van. He convinced me for a few minutes Hashem loves me. But how do I deal with Tisha B'Av? What am I? It's a night of Hashem saying, remember that night when you cried for nothing? I'm going to make you continue to cry. I'm going to make you continue to cry. Nakman. That seems like vengeful. That doesn't seem right. I cried for nothing. I made a mistake. Now what? You're going to cry forever? So I learned something beautiful with my Chevra in Efrat last year. Trying to understand this, trying to make shalom with this, because I have to believe that God is not a Kel Nakman. He's not an vengeful God. And He doesn't get this like, it's not like all year long He's like, okay, I'm going to do chesed all year long, but I can't wait for these 9 days in Tisha B'Av to like stick it to them again, to keep my promise. I told you, you're going to cry forever. So I don't know, how many of you ever heard of Rav Erez Moshe Doron? Did any of you have heard him? We learned, he's very, very special. One summer in our Chevra in the shul, he spent, not a summer, like 6 months, learning one of his books about parenting based on Rabbi Nachman. A beautiful book in English called From Dust to Gold. Gorgeous, gorgeous book. His lashon is very, it's so Rabbi Nachman, but it's so zorem, it's so simple, but so deep, so koleh al hamatara. It gets there. Did any of you ever meet him? He's amazing, very, very special, very hidden, very special. Well, Tanya met him, yeah. Tanya definitely met him.
What did he say?
It actually, it might matter.
Now we're really
yeah, now we're really true. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if this is part of, who knows. Listen what he says. We learned this last year, and I learned it with the Chevra from the Moshav last year also, on the Moshav. I was with them a few days ago in Chafetz Chaim, and they lived the following teaching. Listen to this. They lived, the Chevra from the Moshav lived actually what we want to share right now. There are 2 types of tears in the world. There's Bechi Shel Yeush, which everyone has gone through in this room. Everyone. I'm certain. I don't pretend to know anybody here, even my family, because we're all secrets, and I know Aryeh Leib for most of my life, and I know that we all, and I don't even have to know really the heart of things. Everyone's gone through the first type of tears. Bechi Shel Yeush. I cry because I'm in despair. I cry because I can't control it. And it's a manifestation of my soul trying to express itself, trying to say something. Bechi Shel Yeush, tears of despair. Hashem looks at that and He says, I can't even begin to imagine how painful it is when you realize that you cried over nothing. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you the opportunity every single year on Tisha B'Av to do a tikkun of crying. To give you the ability to transform your tears of Yeush to tears of tikva, to tears of hope. Because everyone knows that when you cry out of hope, out of longing, out of ratzon, there is no greater feeling like that in the world. Anyone that's ever cried the other types of tears, nothing can come. First of all, it's impossible to describe what that actually feels like. Is it empowering? Maybe it's empowering. Is it purifying? Is it like a mikveh? Absolutely. But it's so much more than that. Hashem tells us, "Bachitem b'chia shel chinam." Yeah. You kind of messed up. You cried and you realized afterwards those tears were for nothing. I gotta give you a day every single year for the ability to do a tikkun on crying over the right things. Because when you cry over the right things, something beautiful and magical happens. The Gemara says, Kol hamit'abel al Yerushalayim zoche vero'eh besimchata. That means everyone thinks that means, if I cried on Tisha B'Av, I'll see Mashiach. I'll be the one that actually gets to see Mashiach. Listen how Reb Shlomo explains this. Kol ha'mit'abel al Yerushalayim is lashon hoveh. It doesn't mean ba'avar. Mi shehit'abel, no. Kol mi shemit'abel, whoever is crying for Yerushalayim, zoche, lashon hoveh, it's present tense. Vero'eh, and he sees besimchata, in the moment. Not one day, but when your tears are in the right place and you've learned how to cry, and when it's not worth crying over certain things that are levatala, those tears themselves form for you beauty. What does it mean that you see Yerushalayim being built in its simcha? It means you see beauty again. Many of you have heard the nigunim that we've been putting out this last year of a singer named Michal Shapiro. I don't know how many of you have heard these nigunim. These songs are from another universe. Another universe. Rav Weinberger first got in touch with these nigunim 30-something years ago, 35 years ago, and he couldn't stop crying. He tracked down the composer who was then living in Albany, and he said to him, I just had to tell you that my wife and I, every night we go to sleep, we listen to these songs, and we can't stop crying. And Michal answered Rav Weinberger and said, well, I couldn't stop crying when I was composing them. What are those kind of tears? Those aren't bechi shel yi'ush. That's not what we call b'chiat chinam, for nothing. That's bechi shel tikva. That's bechi of that creates beauty. When it says you see Yerushalayim being rebuilt, you see Yerushalayim in its simcha, when it means is that the churban of Yerushalayim wasn't just a building, like we said in the beginning. Beauty was lost. And the more you cry for nothing, the less beauty you attach yourself to. And the more you cry for the right reasons, the tikkun happens over tears, and you actually start to see in the moment right now Yerushalayim being rebuilt. Give another name for that: beauty. Things look beautiful to you, people look beautiful to you, and the highest thing is you look beautiful to you. You look beautiful to you. What a different Tisha B'Av that is. What a different world that is. What a tikkun that is. Remember the Torah we learn every year, we say, on Tisha B'Av, what are we busy saying after Eicha? Kinot. Remember this Torah? We say kinot. How do you say kinot in English? Lamentations? No, that's Eicha. What's kinot? I don't know the right word for it. But you all know what kinot are. Who connects to kinot? Are you kidding me? Who has actually stayed in shul for kinot in the last 25 years, right? Who stays? Barely anybody. Everyone's embarrassed to say, not me, right? Please, let's be real. Kinot. But what is kinot? So we listen to this Torah. We build on it every single year. We say kinot, describing the loss of beauty. That's what it is. But what does it do when we realize what it's kedai to cry over? The kinot form a tikkun. It's the same letters. Kinot and tikkun. What is the tikkun for? When we were a baby, a tinok, which is the same exact letters as kinot and tikkun, everything in the world was beautiful. Then there was a nituk, same letters. What does nituk mean? To be removed. To be, like the disengagement was called a hitnatkut. It's the same words, right? Or like lenatek sicha, to disconnect, right? So what ends up happening to us, listen to this, on Tisha B'Av, I'm reading kinot which describe the loss of beauty in the world. But when I remember that I'm not just crying over a building, I'm crying over myself, that I cannot see beauty in myself anymore. And I can't see beauty in the world. I can't see beauty in people. I'm doing a tikkun for the kid that's so alive in me, the tinok, that's still alive, that's still suffering from being menutak, from the initial nituk that he experienced just by coming into this world, from that world that was all beautiful. What's the product of such a real avoda like that? Who is born on Tisha B'Av? The most beautiful person in the world, Mashiach ben David, who ushers in whatever you want to call Mashiach and the day of Mashiach. Just give this word, beauty. The world becomes beautiful again. But more important than the world becomes beautiful, Baruch Hashem, many of us, if kimat most of us, have children in this room, and Be'ez Hashem, everyone will have children, happy and healthy children. You know what kills a parent? When you can see in your child that they don't feel that they're beautiful. That kills you more than not seeing beauty in yourself. That's murder. Any parent knows that when they have a child that has an issue, you could call it low self-esteem, low self-confidence. What it really is that when they look in the mirror, or when they think about themselves, and they don't see beauty, you want to throw it, you could go mad. You could go mad over it. That's enough of a reason to plug into Tisha B'Av. Because the tikkun of the kinot over the nituk of a tinok that happens on Tisha B'Av is the day, is the prime day of the year where you can cry over the right things. And when a parent cries over wanting their child to feel like they're beautiful, there's no more of a beautiful thing in the world than that. Nothing's more beautiful than that. But when a parent comes before God and says, why'd you give me this kind of child? I'm crying to you. Why did you give me this type of a child? That's bechi shel yeush. Those are the most disgusting tears in the world. So Hashem says, oh, you cried like that? For many years, Am Yisrael has cried like that. Why did you give me this? Why did you take me out of Mitzrayim to go there? And all the other assimilations, all the other comparisons you can do about all those questions of why did you give me this? Why did you give me this? Tisha B'Av comes, the Gamal Hashem is saying, Bachitem b'chia shel chinam. You had that one night and you realized afterwards, you can't believe you cried like this, right? I'm giving you an opportunity every single year to learn how to cry the right way, to form this tikkun that we're speaking about. Honestly, Chevra, I don't know of any other way of this door to connect to the pnimiyut of Tisha B'Av itself. Because you have those two voices I spoke about in the beginning, that on the one hand they're saying, Azavoti Tisha B'Av, we're back in Israel. Are you kidding me? Are you crazy? Our grandparents would have given anything in the world for one day of our normal life, right? But we get every single day. I always say, my grandmother jumped off the train on the way to Auschwitz. My father's mother jumped off the train. It's an insanely miraculous story that she actually took a pail that was in the cattle car that was used for one of the sick older men that was in the cattle car on the way to Auschwitz to do what he had to do. And her mother, my great-grandmother, and her sisters convinced her she was, I obviously didn't get her genes, very short, small, frail, tiny. And they said to her, if you stand on that pail, you can squeeze yourself through the barbed wires and you can jump off this train. I have no idea how these things happen. She gave one glance at her mother, at her sisters for the last time, because they ended up in the gas chambers, my great-grandparents, my great-aunts. She looked back, she jumped off, and I'm sitting with you here today. Now, let's go to her parents that ended up continuing on that train. And let's tell them the story of where we're at right now. What would they tell us? I think to make harmony between that side and Yeshua Wolf's side, the Baba Verchassid, to make peace between those two voices, it's that they're saying to us, you can have the biggest building in the world called Beis HaMikdash, but until you identify yourself with the concept called beauty, and until you learn how to cry over the right things in life, all the beautiful buildings in the world won't mean anything to you. So it seems that every year that we're still in the state of mourning on the 9 days on Tisha B'Av, it's because the Ribono Shel Olam is giving us another opportunity to look in the mirror and say, Marabu Masecha Hashem, and to mean it. To really mean it. To look at people and say that. To look at life, to look at the opportunity to be alive. To look at dogs and cats and fish and God knows what, and somehow see a bit more beauty in the world. How do we do that? Wow, if I wish I could tell you that I know. I have no idea. I have no idea. I have no idea. If I had to stop right now and like think back at this last year since last Tisha B'Av and say, if I had to like take all my tears and put them in a bucket and try to divide them between what was it worth crying over and what wasn't, I don't know. I don't know how you do this in the moment. I don't know. If anyone has an opinion or an eitzah, I would just be so thankful. But I believe so much in that teaching that Rav Erez pointed out about the difference between Bechi Shel Yeush and Bechi Shel Tikva. Because when I look at it like that, you know what happens? God is not a Nakman. God is not someone who's a vengeful. God is not someone that throws me into this world and says, here, you'll have some high moments. You'll have some kids. You have a beautiful wedding. You have a great Shabbos table. But you're going to feel it every single year, harder and harder and harder, deeper and deeper and deeper. Hashem stops being that Nakman, and He becomes, to me, the biggest master of giving opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. If I had to guess, it would be like the communities we're creating, like this absolutely magnificent community and the chevra that you guys have here, where you're able to see beauty in each other. It's got to be that it starts there. It has to be that it starts there. It has to be that the shuls you go to, or the shuls you don't go to yet, or the interactions you have with each other, or the conversations you have at the Shabbos table, or just life, being in each other's life, knowing that despite what I feel about myself, I know that there's someone around here that when he looks at me, I know they think I'm beautiful. I'm not there yet about myself, but that magnetism that Reb Nosson speaks about, the great length, the koach HaMashiach, that magnetism, the or chozer, there's a whole teaching, Sicha Saran, Nikutim Aran, the or chozer, the boomerang light of what we do, how we bounce things off each other. The more that happens, the more that there's a chance, like the Piaseczner's dream of building a what's called a b'nei machshava tova, like a conscious community, you know, like that's much more of a possibility, be'emet, for real things like this to do like real tikkunim, of bechi shel yeush and bechi shel tikva. You know, there was an amazing thing on the back of one of Reb Shlomo's albums. He writes the following. He said something so deep. He said, friends, in every one of my songs, there's a tear. Please don't wipe that tear away. That's my gift from me to you. That's my gift from me to you. He said there's a tear in the songs that are happy ones. There's a tear in the songs that are sad ones. And I thought about that for many years. He's the only one that even in nigunim that are in major chords or even happy, it brings out tears. It's the weirdest thing. It can bring out a tear. From some of the footage of him walking down the streets of Leningrad 30 years ago this Elul. One morning he decided, some of it's on YouTube, he decided they're going to walk the streets of Leningrad. Unheard of. It was unheard of back then. The footage is biblical. Nothing short, nothing less. It's biblical footage. Give us a bracha to put everything out this year. Everything, Bezrat Hashem. So in the footage, what happens? He starts walking down the street. He starts singing. Ay, 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 ay. What a nigga. Ay, 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 ay. Now what are the words to that? Siman, siman, sim. It's not Al-Eilani B'chia. It's Siman Tov Master, singing without words. He starts walking, so there's a group of people looking at him. Out of your mind? What is this, right? But he's slowly, he continues. A group forms around him, then a little bit of a bigger group forms around him. Then a little girl comes up to him with a flower. He says, this little girl from Leningrad comes up to him, gives like a 7-year-old girl, gives him a flower. He looks at it, he's singing the nigun. Then a boy that's holding the New Testament and has a massive cross on, grabs him from the other side, and they continue walking down the street, this cobblestone road in Leningrad. And he continues to sing the song, ay, 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 ay. But this is what it sounded like. Ay, 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 ay. Well, what was happening? Was he sad? He was crying the B'chia Shel Doros. He was crying the B'chia Shel Dorot. He was crying those other types of tears of longing of, this is a taste of what it's going to be like. This is a taste of Yom Shekulah Shabbos. These are the tears that remind you that you're beautiful. These are the tears where Hashem says, I gave you the opportunity. So I just give us all a bracha. There's a million more words in Tarilach to say on Tisha B'Av. This is the only thing that helps me personally grab onto the depth, the pnimius of what's available to us this week. And I hope and pray, like, you know those, excuse me for saying it, and I'm going to be very makpid on with my shul this Shabbos, and if some of the chevra are watching, they're getting warned already right now. You know the chevra that like, first of all, we uprooted one very, very bad minhag that somehow happens all over the world, especially in shuls I grew up in. What tune did you guys grow up, if you went to shul, hearing Friday night, Shabbos Chazon for Lecha Dodi? Lecha Dodi Nikras Kala. You realize how sick that is? That's got to be one of the most backwards things that ever existed in the world. Do you understand what we just said right now? There's kinot, we say Shabbos, Tisha B'Av mourning. Eli Tzion ve'areha kemo isha b'tzireha v'chiv tzurach aguratzak. It's the tune for these kinot that we spoke about before, right? For some reason, it's like, let's get into the mood of Tisha B'Av on Shabbos and let's sing that nigun. And the Rebbe, everyone knows, the Rebbe was so makpid that Davka, every Shabbos has to be the highest, but specifically the Shabbatot of the 3 weeks, because there's no inyan of Avelus on Shabbos, that's why you got to, since there's Avelus during the week, you got to make sure 1,000,000 times more on the Shabbatot of the 3 weeks to go nuts, to go extra nuts. Extra nuts with Simcha. So Baruch Hashem, Friday night we're done with that. You have Bar Mitzvah boy by us this Shabbos that he got nervous, his father got nervous because he was taught by a tzaddik in the community, the laning. What's in the laning? There's another remez for Tisha B'Av. Because there's a pasuk with the word Eicha, so they lane that pasuk in the parsha like you learned Eicha. Eicha esa levadi torchachem masachem verivchem. They don't do it by Chabad, right? No, Hasidim don't do it. So I have Rachmanis from the kid. I don't want to have him relearn the, whatever. We'll keep that. It's fine. So Baruch Hashem, we're uprooting more and more, especially since Rebbe Yehuda Nasi Bikesh Lakor Tisha B'Av Shechal B'Shabbos. He Bichlal wanted to say, let's get rid of this whole thing when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos. But you know those announcements when Tisha B'Av comes out on Motzei Shabbos or on Shabbos and it's Nidcha? Remember those announcements? if God forbid, we have to, and they say it, and everyone's like, everyone like has that weird like chuckle, right? It's like this. No one's sitting there and like that. When the Gabbai gets up and says, if Tisha B'Av, actually, if we actually end up, if we're still fasting. So, based on what we learned tonight, what does that mean? It doesn't mean if the Beis HaMikdash didn't fall down from Shamayim by Motzei Shabbos, or if Mashiach didn't come by Motzei Shabbos. What it means is that if people throughout the whole world still can't identify the concept of beauty within themselves, we're going to have to keep on crying. That's what it means. So some guy from my show, this beautiful Yid, I love him so much, real pnimi, he asks me the deepest questions. He came up to me last week, he was very nervous, he said, I have to ask you something, please forgive me for having the chutzpah to ask this. I said, what? He said, can you please make sure that when whoever makes the announcements for next Shabbos doesn't go there to that place? Doesn't go to that place of saying, okay, Shabbos is 1:45, learning's at 8:15, quarter to 9, and if, and everyone's there. He says, please prevent that. I'm begging you, I can't. Please make sure that doesn't happen. But the way we see it right now is a completely different way of understanding what that means. If God forbid, we go through Shabbos Chazon where we get that vision, Hashem gives us a vision of beauty. The Berditchever says it's in the form of the Beis HaMikdash, and we're adding on to it, and we're saying that somehow in Shabbos Chazon, through the tears we've had for these 3 weeks, we get a vision of how beautiful we are. And while we're getting a vision of how beautiful we are, we're crying in our own way that our children should think that they're beautiful. That our children should grow up in the homes we're working hard to provide for them, and the surroundings we're trying so hard to build and create and recreate for them, that our kinderlach think about themselves like beauty. And if that still didn't happen, Hashem, I need another day to cry my eyes out, Chia L'Doros. The privileged crying that you gave me that night, that started back when the Meraglim came back and made us cry for nothing. I always thought about the word dim'ah. Maybe we'll end with this. This word dim'ah. There's a song that made me cry a lot for a good reason when I was younger. It's not Reb Shlomo's song. How many of you grew up on the Rabbi's Sons? Anybody here? You did, Mish? Eitan and I recorded. What's that?
Yeah.
The highest.
Yeah, on records.
The highest.
Everybody did. They just don't know that.
They just don't know. For instance, what's some of their famous ones? I mean, Mi Ha'ish Baruch Chet, right? Oh, you probably know these songs. Some of them know, Michelle? Rabos Machshava Belevish. Those, right? Very deep parts of Nigunim. One of their songs, when we learned it, my brother and I recorded it on our second album. And the words are, it's actually from Tikkun HaKlali also. Hay sali dim'asi lechem yomam v'layla be'emor elai kol hayom ayeh elokecha. My tears were my bread, day and night. Whenever I looked up and I said, Ayeh Elokecha, where are you? Those tears gave me sustenance. What kind of tears are those? It's not, where are you, I don't see you. It's, where are you, I need to see you. Ayeh, it's a Torah of Ayeh. It's a different type of tears. There's the type of tears. Bishvil zeh abאת אותי לעולם? You gave me children so that they should struggle trying to figure out how they could see themselves as beautiful? Or, Ribono Shel Olam, I'm crying because it's only through these tears I can make that beauty be part of their lives. So, Haitali dim'ati, those tears were my sustenance, yomam v'layla. And then I thought about it, that in all the Sfarim, Whenever it quotes David HaMelech, you know how the Sfarim write out David HaMelech's abbreviation? Daled Mem Ayin He. David Melech Alav Shalom. That's how his name is written in all the Sfarim. Dim'ah, because he's the master of tears. Sefer Tehillim is not Bechi Shel Yeush. It's not B'chias Chinam. Sefer Tehillim is Bechi Ledoros. And you know, where we live, where you live, this is the area where those Dma'ot were poured down. This is where King David composed Tehillim. Although according to Ari and Jeremy, it was all written in one of those caves by their farm. But you know that it wasn't only there. It was also in this area as well. It was all here. So I give us a bracha from the bottom of our hearts. Find that tear. Don't be scared of that tear. Don't be scared you'll be consumed by it. Find that tear. Realize that if we're still in the 9 days, it's only because Hashem is giving us another opportunity for us to feel like we're beautiful. And when that's my focus, that's my shift, that's the way I'm going into this Tisha B'Av, Zolam Acher, and Kol HaMit'abel Al Yerushalayim, while you're crying, those kind of tears, Zoche Vero'eh B'Simchata. You start seeing the Simcha of Yerushalayim, which means that when Yerushalayim is being rebuilt, everyone feels special, everyone feels beautiful. In the schus of Skat, of Chaim Yitzchak ben Avram, I could speak on our behalfs, Tanya too, probably yours as well. He made us feel beautiful. When I reread some of the emails from him, maybe at the moment I didn't want to believe that what he's saying and what he sees is real, because that's my own fechkeit. But when he looked at people that he loved, he really saw beauty. He did. He really saw beauty in his merit, in his yortzeit. That legacy, that's a beautiful legacy. That's a beautiful legacy, but it's not enough to just see it in others. You got to see it in yourself. You got to see it in yourself. Sharei Dma'ot lo nin'alu. The gates of tears they never closed. A lot of other gates we can't get through. We don't know what to do. Things seem to be locked. It's very hard to get through a lot of people. Tears can do that. The Dma'ot can do that. So in a world that cries a lot over nothing, we have the privilege to learn how to cry over everything meaningful. And when we say this should be the last Tisha B'Av, we're saying it with much more of tochen, much more context. It just simply means that this should be the last year where we learn how to cry correctly. Bezrat Hashem.
You're listening to the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.org.